smaller hands you can change the reach. Keep in mind this will change the cable tension, so you might have to go back and adjust it. Having a clean rim will help with braking power. You take some fine steel wool and go over the side of the rim. If it appears that your pads are somewhat glazed over from heat, you take a fine file and file it down. Make sure to keep the same contour of the brake path. If you notice your brake sticking, you can remove it from the post and clean the post real well. Apply some grease. Before you place the brake back on, you'll notice that there's 3 holes drilled for the spring to go. Factory usually goes to the middle. You would go to the top hole to create more spring tension and the bottom hole for less. The front, however, does not have this adjustment on it. To help hold the steering still while you're adjusting the front brake, you can take a toe clip strap and just wrap it around the wheel and the frame. Chains usually last between 800 and about 1,500 miles. Really depends on what kind of riding you're doing. A good sign that you need a new chain is assuming your derailleur is adjusted properly. When you're climbing uphill, sometimes the chain will slip off the rear cogs. That's usually a good sign that the chain's worn. Be careful though, if you wait too long to put a chain on it, you're going to wear the rear cogs down to where you put a new chain on it and it won't mesh up right. So the best way to find out if the chain will mesh up with the cassette is just put a new chain on it and go test ride it and see if it skips. If it skips, you're going to need a new cassette. The front chain rings wear as well with the chain, not near as fast as the rear cassette, so be sure to check your chain rings for wear as well. 2 other ways that you can measure your chain is you can go down to your local bike shop and they've got an actual chain tool. You can either purchase or have them do it. They're just going to insert it on the chain and rotate the top, and this will give you how much the chain is stretched. Another way to do this is a simple technique with a ruler. 12 links should measure 12 inches. 1 link is basically an outer plate and an inner plate. That's considered 1 link. So go ahead and measure 12 of them. Center of the pin to the center of the pin. If you're about 1/8 of an inch over, it's time for a new chain. Okay. 2 ways to remove your chain. One method, if you have a SRAM chain, they usually have a master link where you can push both links together and the chain will pop apart. The other method, if you don't have that style, is to use a chain tool. And what we're going to do is just pick a link to insert it on. Go ahead and screw the chain tool in. And you don't want to pop the pin all the way out. You'll never get it back in. Go ahead and pull the chain out. When you purchase a brand new chain from the factory, it's usually coated in a grease to protect it from rusting. This stuff's pretty sticky. All the dirt and everything's going to stick to it. So I'd almost recommend to take a brand new chain and actually clean it with some solvent or some degreaser of some kind before you put it on. When you get your new chain, you're going to probably notice right away that it's much longer than your original one. They just come in one long length. You're supposed to shorten it. It might help to take your old chain and just line it up next to the new one to get the right length. Remember, a stretched chain is going to be slightly longer than a new chain. For installing the chain, first shift the derailleur all the way to the smallest cog. We're going to route the chain starting with it's going to go right on top of the lower pulley, and then it's going to go underneath the upper pulley and around, and then around the cassette. Now shift the front to the smallest ring. Bring the chain through the front derailleur and around the small ring. The idea to have a proper chain length is when in this gear combination, small, small, the derailleur should just be slightly taut. You shouldn't have any rub down here on the cage. For example, if I were to break the chain about right there, can notice that there's a gap here and it's not going to be rubbing. If I were to have it just a slightly one more link longer, you notice then you're going to get rub. So the idea is you want the chain as long as you can without getting this chain to rub on the cage. Go ahead and get your chain tool out. You're going to break this chain. Remember not to drive the pin all the way out. And if you're using a SRAM chain, we're going to put the chain together using those quick links. This chain is actually a Shimano chain. One thing you got to remember is on any Shimano chain you don't ever want to run the pin back through. You want to make sure that you get a replacement pin. I'm going to go ahead and take the chain off the front crank. This will kind of ease the tension a little bit. And go ahead and place the chain together. You're going to insert the link through the pin. It's tapered on one end, so it'll kind of guide itself through. I'm going to go ahead and take the chain tool, drive the pin through. It's about twice as long as a normal pin. This way it rivets itself and we're going to snap the other end off. Go ahead and drive it all the way in. Now we're going to take our chain tool. Notice how there's all this excess pin on the back. And I'm actually going to snap it off with my chain tool. And once you drive a pin in, you'll notice that it's kind of got a little resistance to it, somewhat stiff. You can actually take the first section of the chain tool here, and this is going to stretch the chain out a little bit to kind of loosen it up. You can feel it kind of snap in. Place it back on the ring. Make sure we're not rubbing there, and that's how you do it. If it's not a Shimano chain, you can actually run the link back through without using a chain pin. You just make sure not to push the pin too far through. And again, you're going to get probably a stiff link from doing it. So you want to use the first part of the chain tool to get rid of the stiff link. When you fit a SRAM chain, be sure to break it on two of the inside links because the master link goes on the outside. We're just going to clip these together. Chains do break every once in a while. If you're out in the trail and you do have a chain break on you, what you do is you just take out the bad links, join the chain back together, and it wouldn't hurt to carry some spare links with you out on the trail. A lot of times while you're riding you'll get a lot of chain slap on the chainstay. It's going to probably scratch up the paint and makes a lot of noise. If you would like, you can take an old tire and just cut a piece off, and you can just zip tie it to the chainstay, and this will keep the chain slap down. It's a little quick tool you can make. You take a spoke and bend it sort of like a C. You can actually clip it on the chain